I have something I need to confess. I am not a fan of the word normal. The word normal is something that I've heard be used throughout my entire life, and I've heard it be used in a variety of contexts. Some, admittedly, are a little bit more appropriate than others, but more often than not, it sets a seemingly impossible standard for those who feel like they don't fit into the norms of a certain group. One group that particularly struggles with the use of the word normal are people who are on the autism spectrum, myself included. Many people who are on the autism spectrum struggle with the use of the word normal because of the way it's presented in modern society. Merriam-Webster defines normal as conforming to a type, standard, or regular pattern, characterized by that which is considered usual, typical, or routine. Now, that's a very broad definition, considering that normal is something that, in my opinion, is quite arbitrary. I say that because what's normal for some people may not be normal for others. For example, I grew up in a Hispanic household in Miami. We cooked Hispanic foods, we ate at Hispanic restaurants, celebrated holidays in a Hispanic fashion, and because we're Cuban, we talked really, really loud. Now, that was normal for me, but for a kid who lives on a farm in Arkansas, in a town where there aren't any Hispanic people around, then maybe that's not so normal for them. When I moved to Buffalo, New York at the age of 18, I got there and I came to find what I already thought to be true. Buffalo is different from Miami. Very, very different. In fact, Buffalo might as well be a different planet. I remember there were a couple of times where people asked me to, quote, use my inside voice. And I thought that I was, because I thought that talking at that range was how everyone talked. I mean, that's how everyone talked where I grew up after all. But for my friends in Buffalo, that just wasn't the case. This is because normal is all about your perceived reality, and very few people have a perceived reality as unique as people who are on the autism spectrum. Let's take a look at those who have Asperger's syndrome. All my life, I grew up with kids who had Asperger's and struggled so very much to fit in with those who didn't have Asperger's. That's because people with it have a very hard time properly communicating due to excessive shyness, a very common symptom found in those who have Asperger's. When they are social, however, it's typically something that they themselves like, and they'll talk about it, even if no one else is as interested as they are. Speaking from personal experience, I can tell you that I myself am very guilty of this. Anyone who knows me knows I can talk about things like comic books, movies, internet memes and their history, people, and a bunch of other random topics that you would never expect someone to have so much knowledge of. It's because I take so much pride in my interests, and I have had a habit of oversharing those interests and getting a bit ahead of myself. Especially when it comes to talking about my favorite film of all time, Jaws. It's an interest so deep that it earned me the nickname Shark Boy from one of my good friends. But all this was due to the lack of understanding of social cues, another common symptom found in people who have Asperger's. It's not something people with Asperger's ever really fully understand. After all, Asperger's doesn't just go away. The most important thing to remember, though, is that it's not their fault. They can't help it. That's simply how their brains are wired. Granted, Asperger's does come in various levels of functioning. Not everyone is as severe as others are. It's different for everyone. People who are high-functioning typically have it easier when, let's say, they're talking to others and introducing themselves, while those who are low-functioning might have an unbelievably difficult time doing something as simple as making direct eye contact. Some people learn to control these issues faster than others, some learn slower, and sadly, some are so severe that they never learn at all. But for every struggle a child with Asperger's may have, I believe that no struggle for them is greater than the struggle of feeling normal. Kids with Asperger's tend to overthink and overanalyze things, sometimes even more than teenagers who aren't even on the spectrum, often putting too much thought and emotion into one thing that, in reality, is not all that complex. When kids are at the age of being able to understand what their condition is and how that makes them different from everyone else, the first instinct is to reject it. After all, kids hate the idea of being different. Most kids don't even really want to stand out, especially kids with a disorder that already makes them really shy. Kids are shy enough without that added on top of it. But because they want to be normal, little do they know, Normal is all about who you are and what your experiences are. The problem is that we put such a huge emphasis on normal, to the point where it almost has this implied connotation of superiority. It's hard for people on the spectrum to fit that criteria because that criteria is different for everyone. And as the old saying goes, you can't please everyone. It's simply impossible, especially in today's culture. So this is what I propose. We need to teach people that being normal isn't so cut and dry as everyone makes it out to be. Now, I'm not saying that we need to remove the word from our vocabulary or just ban it altogether. Nothing like that. After all, in some instances, normal actually does have a very concrete definition. Like saying please and thank you to your waiter at a restaurant and being polite to people you just met. Those are normal reactions to the given scenario. There's a time and place for everything. But it's the definition of being normal as an individual that is not so straightforward. And that is something that we all need to understand, because if we don't, then we're just going to keep having waves and waves of kids try so hard to fit into something that isn't real. For people as a collective society, there is no concrete standard for who is normal. There's just people who are different, or in many cases, they're just not well. And to those people, we're the ones who aren't normal, because it's all a matter of perspective. So for anyone who's watching this and struggles with any form of autism, I ask you to take what I'm about to say and apply it to yourself. There's nothing wrong with you, okay? And there's nothing wrong with being different. It's okay to not be like everybody else. Just because your brain functions at a different level than others do, that doesn't make you any less capable than anybody else. Some of the most famous people of the past and even of our time have been diagnosed as autistic. Steve Jobs, the co-founder of Apple, a multi-billion-dollar company.
We're introducing 3 revolutionary products of this class.
Albert Einstein.
We are concerned here with an act of humanity, with the maintaining of cultural values, and not least with a measure of considerable political importance.
Lionel Messi, arguably the greatest soccer player to have ever set foot on a field, and even the legendary actor Anthony Hopkins.
Oh, Agent Starling, you think you can dissect me with this blunt little tool?
All people who have made an impact and left their own mark on history. Now, I don't want to give you false hope and tell you that it's all uphill from here, because in all honesty, the road ahead isn't going to be easy. Not even a little bit. There's going to be many ups and downs, just like everyone else in life. You're going to struggle to the point where you feel like you can't go any further. But it is essential that you see it through to the end. And don't be discouraged because you don't fit into a certain norm. Not fitting into norms can actually be a good thing. Be the first of who you are and who you want to be. And don't let anyone take that away from you. In the end, you decide who you want to be. That decision is yours and yours alone to make. And if you don't like who you are, then you have the ability to change that too. Don't let one word make you feel like you can't find or even be your true self. It's all up to you. It always has been. So always understand that despite your differences, you are fine just the way that you are. And don't let anyone tell you that you can't do something because you're different. When people tell you that you can't do something, oftentimes it's because they don't think they can do it, so they don't want to see you do it either. But can you imagine what the world would be like today if everyone gave up on things because other people told them to? I know, at least in my own experience, my life wouldn't have been nearly as different as it is now. Had I listened to all the naysayers throughout my life, I wouldn't have had the courage to have been among the first in my friend group from my hometown to move away to another state, thousands of miles away. I never would have realized my love for filmmaking, and I wouldn't have made all the short films that I'm so proud of. I would have never met the amazing people in New York who I know will be part of the next generation of the next great filmmakers. All this because I believed in myself, and I didn't worry about what other people wanted my future to be.